Flea, come here. Come on. Flea, come here. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. There you go. Look. Hello, everybody. This is Flea. This is the sweetest cat we have here in the farm. For the longest time, we thought it was a she, but turns out it's a he, and his name is Flea. Say hi. Looks like he wants to be in today's video, so yeah, why not? He might. Hey, Flea. Gonna take him out. Okay, so no cats in the video. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So over the last few weeks, we've been having a lot of new people over here. The channel has almost doubled the number of subscribers from 2,000 to pretty much 4,000 in just a month. That's pretty awesome, but that also means that a lot of people watching this video don't know much about what we do here, about me, about the community. So I thought that it was about time to do a Q&A video. This is the first time ever that I do something like this, so we'll see how it goes. I promised this video a month ago in this channel, so people left questions in the comments, and a couple of days ago I asked on Instagram people to send me additional questions. I have a bunch of them. I think they're gonna be enough for this video, but if you have any other questions that I don't answer here, please feel free to send me an email, to leave a comment down below. And you know, if we have enough, I can always make a second episode of the Q&A. First question, what was your first camera? So I don't really remember what was the first camera that I ever used, but I do know that this is the first camera that I own. I purchased this camera with my own money 17 years ago, and it was my first digital camera. I have a video about this camera. I'm gonna link it somewhere around there. It's an HP PhotoSmart 320. But this was a point and shoot camera. It was just to document my life. I didn't want to do anything serious with it. But the first camera that I bought with the idea of doing something more serious with photography was this one. This is the Sony RX100 Mark II. I've had it for, I don't know, 6 years. I bought it secondhand. It was used, but it was in perfect condition. And to today, it's still working just fine. I dropped it many times. I had to replace the screen because it got wet too. And it's still working. It works pretty much fine. Many times I bring it with me in my pocket, in my jacket, if I don't have any other camera with me, because it's pretty awesome. It takes very high quality images too. When did you start in photography? So it was not too long ago. It was 5 to 6 years ago when I moved to Oregon, to the West Coast. It was there where I fell in love with nature and the great outdoors. Until then, I was a computer engineer, so I spent the most of my time at a desk in front of a computer. But it was in Oregon where I started going hiking and backpacking and camping, all the kind of stuff. I fell in love with all of that. And then photography came naturally to me because I love doing that kind of stuff so much that I had to document that. And then I started photographing all the landscapes around there. That's how I got started. What's your photography kit? So as many of you know, I shoot both analog and digital. I try to keep my photography kit as minimal and light as possible because I record pretty much every time that I go out and take photos. I'm recording videos, so I need gear for recording those videos as well. I bring this camera that I have, the A6500. I usually bring my drone as well. So the photography gear has to be as minimal as possible because I have to fit everything in my backpack. So with that in mind, my digital camera of choice is the Sony a6000 with a zoom lens. This is a size 16 to 70mm f4, and this is an awesome range. I use it 90% of the time. This lens is on this camera. 90% of my images are made with this lens. I don't need much more than this, and the camera is amazing, the lens is amazing. I love this combo. It's so light, and I don't know, it just creates amazing images. But I do have another two lenses for this camera. One of them is this kit lens. This is a Sony 55 to 210mm telephoto lens. And the image quality of this lens is not great, but I love it. I love this lens. I've made some of my favorite images with this one, and the reason for that is because it's so light and so tiny, so compact to be a telephoto lens that is always in my backpack. Thanks to that, for having it there, I've been able to get images that I wouldn't be able to if it wasn't for that lens. On the wide side of things, this is a new addition to my kit. This is a Samyang, or Rokino in the US, 12mm f2 manual lens, and as I said, I got it like a month ago, so I haven't had the chance to use it too much just yet, but I'm liking what I'm seeing, and it allows me to create those wide angle shots that I wasn't able to create with the other two lenses. But yeah, my kit, as I said, I try to keep it as minimal and as slight as possible, so this is all I use for my digital photography. Now, the Bronica is a completely different story. This is a big, heavy camera, but I try to keep it as minimal as possible too. That's why I only have two lenses for it right now. It's the 80mm lens that is pretty small and compact, and I have the 150mm lens. So this is my film kit. I don't want to bring anything else with me, because otherwise I will have to start choosing between different lenses. I don't want to do that. So these are my 2 cameras and 5 lenses. I love them all. I've used a lot of cameras and lenses in the past, but I came to realize that this is the setup that fits me the best, and my style and the workflow that I follow out there. And I love using these 2 cameras and these lenses. If you had to change your gear, what camera type, brand would you choose? That's a very good question, and I don't know. Let's say if money wasn't a problem, the answer is pretty clear to me. I would go for a Hasselblad H6D or a Phase 1. Those are medium format digital cameras, and they are well over $40,000 plus all the lenses, but they look like the perfect camera, the perfect, it's like if these 2 cameras had a baby, because it's more or less the form factor of a Bronica, but it's digital, and you can use a film box with the Hasselblad H6, I believe. So that would be probably my choice if money wasn't a problem. But of course, money is a problem. So if my A6000 were to break tomorrow, I would probably buy another one, another A6000. I think they were on sale last week. They were going for less than $400. That's less than a GoPro. I know that it's still money, but for a camera like this, APS-C camera, it's nothing. It's very cheap, and it's very good value for your money. You get a lot of camera for your money, for sure. I actually like shooting with cheap cameras and cheap lenses. I could afford more expensive cameras, but I don't really want to, because with these cameras, I don't think twice about getting them out there and expose them to rain and cold and snow. Of course, I protect them as much as I can, but if something wrong happens and they break, they stop working, it couldn't be a big deal to replace them with a new one. As I said, like $400, something like that. If my camera was $3,000 to $4,000 and the lens was like $2,000 to $3,000, it would be a completely different story. Maybe I wouldn't be able to get all the shots that I want to get. So that's one of the reasons why I love shooting with this camera, because it gives you amazing image quality for a very cheap or affordable price, and you can replace it if something bad happens to it. How did you develop your style? Well, that's a long story. That's a 5-year long story, but long story short, I started out shooting more like adventure photography, travel photography. They were images in color, and I loved the adventure part of that. I loved the travel part of that, but I wasn't feeling satisfied with the images that I was creating at that moment, and eventually I got burnt out, and I started like experimenting with different stuff. I started shooting 35mm film for the first time. Then I started shooting black and white with my digital camera, and I immediately got hooked with black and white. And then I started experimenting with different aspect ratios, and I got to square, and I absolutely loved the square. And since then, that's what I do. I shoot in a square and black and white, but the editing or the style of the images themselves, that is something that is constantly changing. I'm still experimenting, and that is a constant evolution that I don't know if I'm ever gonna say, okay, this is what I do, this is how I edit all my images, because every image is different too. But I would say that that part of the style, the square black and white, that's how it happened. The other part of the style that is more like high contrast images, no details in the shadows, and adding grain to add texture and stuff like that, that's something that is constantly changing, and I don't know if my images are gonna look the same in 5 years, but that's where I am at right now. Why square? Well, that's kind of hard to explain with words, but I would say that is because square images just feel more balanced to me. They just look better. They are easier on my eyes and my brain somehow. I don't know. I just love square format. It's funny because the other only format or aspect ratio that I could consider for the future, as of right now, of course, this could change, is panoramic photos, panoramic images. I've been tempted by that format. That's something that I want to experiment with in the future. Have a combination of square photos with panoramic photos. Every other aspect ratio I'm not really interested in right now. A lot of people ask this, what made you start shooting film? Why did you start shooting film in this digital age? Well, that was part of that experimentation period that I was talking about earlier. At the time when I settled with the square and black and white images, I was shooting with the A6000, and for some weird reason, Sony doesn't let you shoot in 1:1 aspect ratio on their Alpha A6000 series, or even the A7 III, A7R3, the newer cameras. They don't have 1:1 aspect ratio. I don't know why. I guess it must be really hard to add that, but many other camera manufacturers have the 1:1 aspect ratio. Sony, please. This is not about cropping the image, by the way. I don't mind cropping the raw file in post. This is all about composing the image. It was very hard for me at first to compose 1:1 images in this viewfinder and screen when I was seeing the whole thing, the 3:2. Now I got more used to it, and it's not such a huge deal right now, but I will still appreciate having the 1:1. I started looking for cameras that would allow me to shoot in 1:1, not only digital. I think I look at Olympus and Fuji cameras among others, but also film, and the first ones that come to mind when it comes to film is Hasselblads, of course, but the problem with Hasselblads is that they are expensive. It was too much of an investment for just my first medium format camera. I didn't know if I was going to like the format and working with film all the time. So someone told me, I think it was on Instagram, Brandon from Instagram, about these cameras, the Bronicas. They are like, you know, like Hasselblads kind of, but much cheaper. So I started looking at these cameras, and I got this one for $400, including lens and film back and everything, and the finder. So it was ready to go for $400, which is still a little bit of money for a camera that is more than 20 years old. But it was the cheapest option for me to start shooting a square natively. So I went for it, and man, I absolutely love this camera, and this is the reason why I shoot film. I like to think that I don't shoot film, I shoot the Bronica. Of course, I have to use film because it's what this camera uses, but it is true. This camera is a joy to use. It makes me feel inspired. It makes me feel like I'm a better photographer. Maybe that's not the case, I don't know, but I feel it, and I believe that if I feel that I'm a better photographer, that will show in my images at the end. So yeah, I love using this camera, and I don't know if I would shoot film if it wasn't for this camera, but I love it, and that's why I use film. What makes you decide whether an image should be analog or digital? Well, that depends on many things. It depends on the situation, on the location, on how I'm feeling. I try to shoot with the Bronica as much as I can, because as I said, it's my favorite camera. I love using it, but digital is just much more convenient for some situations. For example, one of my latest images that I show here in my last video, that was made on a very foggy day, and the fog, you know, kept moving, and you just don't know what the fog is gonna do next. So I took a bunch of photos with the digital camera because I didn't know if even better composition was coming. I took just 2 of that scene with the Bronica, and one of them happened to be my favorite of all of them, of the ones that I took with the digital camera and the ones that I took with film. But it has nothing to do with beam film. That image was the best one, my favorite, because the fog was in the best, you know, position, and it made the most compelling image. I could have made that image with the digital camera or with the film camera. That doesn't really matter. My goal is that no matter which camera I use, I can get to very similar results. That's why I edit my digital images in a way that they resemble, that they look like they are film. Not only because I like that look, but also because it doesn't really matter. In that case, at that point, it doesn't really matter which camera I use. The photo, the image is gonna speak for itself, and it's not gonna reveal, oh, this is film or this is digital. It's just part of my work. It doesn't really matter which camera I use. What's your favorite black and white film? This one is pretty easy. HP5, always, all the way. I push it 1 or 2 stops, and I love the look of it. What's your favorite developer for black and white film? I use Ilfotec HC. I haven't experimented with a lot of developers, but I like the results that I get from Ilfotec HC, and I don't see a reason why I should change. How do you meter? So I don't have an external line meter. I used to have one, but it was just it was pretty big, and it was just an additional piece to carry with a battery and everything. So I was looking for alternatives to that, and sometimes I use my phone, an app that is called My Light Meter Pro for iOS. I don't know if there is a version for Android, but there are tons of apps that you can use and they work pretty much just fine. But most of the time I use, and I have a video about why I do this and how I do it. I'm gonna link it here. But I usually use my digital camera. So I always have a digital camera with me. It's either the a6000 or if not the video camera, the a6500. And I use the light meter in that camera to meter for the Bronica that it doesn't have. This camera doesn't have a light meter, so you have to adjust the settings manually and you have to get the reading from another source. I totally recommend this way to meter if you are bringing a digital camera along with you. This is. But yeah, what I would do if you want to try this one is to sacrifice a roll of film or at least a few frames, get a reading with your digital camera and copy those settings over to your film camera, and then take one frame and then take another two, underexposing that image by half a stop and one stop, or one stop and two stops, and then overexposing it by one stop and two stops. So you have a wide range of exposures, and then compare the results and see which one looks better exposed to you. And then just use the same difference all the time. Like for example, if overexposing the shot by one stop looks the best, then after that you just get the reading from the digital camera and overexpose it by one stop. I think it's the easiest way to meter. You can also play with the exposure compensation and see the live preview here, so you see the effect that overexposing and underexposing will have on your photo. And if you're shooting black and white, you can see the preview in the digital camera too. So I think it's all advantages to use the digital camera as a light meter. Do you use the same Lee filter kit for both Sony and Bronica? Yes, I do. It's a 100mm filter kit, I guess. This is the holder and these are the filters. I have 3, 6, 10 and 15 ND stops, and they are this is how I make my long exposures, and they are big enough that they fit all my lenses for both the Bronica and the Sony cameras. So I think that's pretty awesome that I can use the same ND filters for both systems, and that's the reason why I got it. I don't use any other kind of filter on my photography, just this one. With my Bronica, the BW orange filter. I use it with my film cameras, I said, because it gives that extra contrast to your images. That contrast is not always easy to add in post to film images if you use black and white film, because you lose all the color information from the scene. If you're working with digital, you still have the color, the raw file has the color information, so you can add contrast based on colors, for example. That is very hard to do with film, so you want to do most of that in camera, so that's why I use the orange filter here. When did you start being a full-time photographer? Do you have any side jobs that led you to what you're doing right now? So I've been a full-time photographer for a little bit over a year now. I have not had any side jobs or any other kind of job that is not photography during this last year. I've made a little bit of money with photography, but not enough yet to make a living with this. As I said, I used to be a computer engineer. I'm 36 now, so I quit my job when I was 34, 35. So I had, or we had some savings, and we still have. My wife has a job. She works remotely. She works from her computer. She can work from anywhere, and that's how we can travel all around the world and how we can afford it. What's the most challenging part of shooting medium format film, and what's your favorite part? I think it's the effort and the time and the money to make images with this camera. I get 12 frames, 12 shots per roll with this camera, and I develop them at home, I scan them at home. That takes a lot of effort and time, and I make mistakes in the process. I have ruined images in the past, so I guess that's the most challenging part. That is all up to me. I do everything here. I mean, I buy the film and I buy the chemicals, I don't make them, but everything else from there is completely up to me. My favorite part is the camera. Again, I love using this camera. I love the viewfinder. That is so lovely to look through this viewfinder. I have never used a viewfinder like this before, and I'm in love with it. 2 years later, I've been shooting this for 2 years and I still like it so much. Does the location really matter, or can we create great photographs anywhere? So it does and it doesn't. It doesn't in the sense that you can create great photographs anywhere, and it does in the sense that some iconic locations are iconic for a reason. What I personally try to do is to have a mix, a combination of both. I like to go to iconic locations every once in a while and make my own, take interpretation of that classic location, and then mix it with images that I make here in my own backyard, where no other photographer in their right mind would ever come to make images here. And I think that in that combination, the combination with images that almost anyone can do, with the images that only you can do, because no one else is going to come here, that's where you can be unique. You can be unique with your portfolio, your images, and your collection of images. I know that's the way I see it, and that's the way I'm trying to do it. Okay, next, what's your favorite focal length? So as you can see, I don't have a favorite focal length, but what I could say, if you get to a big vista and you are overwhelmed by all the things that you are seeing from there, I could just mount a telephoto lens or a long lens and try to find those little details and those close-ups that might be more unique than just taking the whole thing. If you could choose just one photo book to bring with you to a desert island, which one would it be? By far, Forms of Japan by Michael Kenna. Amazing, amazing book. Favorite type of music, favorite singer band. So I like classic music, I like folk, I like rock, I like house. I don't really care too much about the type of music. And about favorite bands, I like Chew, Arcade Fire, and Ratatat. There is a question about tripods. I'm going to be making a video pretty soon about the tripods that I use. The next one is, are you planning to go to other countries in Europe? Yes, so this might change. But the plans for this year, for 2019, is we are gonna be spending a month in the southwest of the US, in Arizona and New Mexico in April. Then we're gonna be spending almost a month in Portland, Oregon, May. Then we're gonna be a few days in San Francisco and California. Then we're gonna be a month in Indiana, in the Midwest. And then in the fall, we're gonna be visiting the UK. And then after that, we'll be visiting some parts of southern Germany, northern Italy, Slovenia, and Austria. Those are the plans for 2019. But the idea is for 2020, go to Scandinavia, maybe Iceland, maybe Switzerland. But yeah, we are planning on visiting as many countries as we can, because now we can do it, we can afford it, and you never know how long that is going to last. So we want to take advantage of our situation right now. How have your photographic experiences from the Pacific Northwest influenced your Spanish work? So I became a photographer there in the Pacific Northwest when we moved to Oregon. And I like to think that that move, I was blind before going there, and now I'm not. And now that I'm back, I see things that I didn't see before. And that's why I like to photograph those things that I couldn't notice before. And yeah, something happened when I went there and I discovered the great outdoors, as I mentioned earlier. And now I see the world in a different way, and that's what I'm trying to capture with my camera. So yeah, the Pacific Northwest made me a photographer. I'm so thankful for that. It will always feel like home to me, and I can't wait to go back this May. Have you shot large format? I have not. I really want to try. I don't think I have what it takes to be a large format photographer. I like to work a little bit faster than that, but I would love to try a large format camera one day for sure. What is your usual routine and workflow when going out for shooting? I don't know, I leave early, like a couple hours before sunrise, depending on where I'm going. And I just stay out for like 4 or 5 hours. And sometimes I stay at the same location for those 5 hours. Sometimes I hike to a different location. But yeah, when I go out, I usually go for a few hours, and I try to go as early as possible. I work better in the early morning. If I wait until sunset, then I might just be tired of doing something else. So I prefer to go early in the morning. How do you find locations to photograph? A lot of driving and Google Maps. Book plans? Yes, I'm working on a book about my work, American Title, that I've been exhibiting here in Spain for the last few months, and it will hopefully be ready within the next couple months. We will see about that, but yes, I'm working on it. Does shooting 35mm capture the same feeling as shooting in the Bronica? No, absolutely not. For me, shooting a 35mm camera film, it almost feels like digital. It's the same, I don't know, it's the same workflow, the same feeling. That's why I love the Bronica. It's so different. Any tips for getting into medium format after shooting 35mm? Not really. Just think that you're going to have fewer shots, and it's going to be a little bit slower than a 35mm camera, but everything else is going to be the same. It's still film. It's a bigger piece of film, but it's still film. A couple people have asked about the before and after I edit my images and about presets that mimic film stocks. I will be making a video about this, about how I edit my digital images pretty soon too. I've been wanting to do that for a while. Can you do an episode on how you use your filters? Well, as I said, I only use the ND filters. I already have a video about how I make my long exposures. I'm gonna link it here. And about the orange filter, there is not much to say about it, just that I use it pretty much all the time, unless there is very, very low light. Any chance of a meetup or workshop in Portland? Sure, I will be there in May, so if anyone wants to come with me shooting, please let me know. Have you seen the films Roma and Cold War? I have not, and actually I don't remember the last movie I saw. I like more TV shows now, can't wait for Game of Thrones. Beer or wine? Beer all the way, but now in the winter I'm drinking wine. And that was the last one. I hope that the video didn't get too long. Thank you so much to everyone who sent me a question. And yeah, if you have more, leave a comment down below, send me an email or a message on any social media app or whatever. Again, to all the new subscribers from the last month, welcome. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.